The Conference of Speakers of State Legislatures of Nigeria have declared that state police is the only antidote to the growing insecurity across the country. The state chief legislators said that at the end of its general meeting held in Abuja. Senior political reporter Abimbola Lawrence has details.
The most important responsibility of government is to protect lives and property, which is a dividend of true democracy. In line with this thought, the Conference of Speakers at their general meeting this year, 2024, deliberate on how to deliver good governance, which is the major focus for the 36 speakers of the Federation. After an inexhaustible deliberation, the conference arrived at this conclusion. The speakers of the state legislatures in the country expressed concerns over the spate of insecurity in Nigeria and called on the National Assembly and the presidency to be proactive in their approach.
Strongly advocates for state policing to check the negative trend of insecurity in our country. To achieve this, the conference appeals to the National Assembly, presidency, and other relevant stakeholders to leverage on the ongoing constitution review exercise.
The conference appeals to political stakeholders at loggerheads and river states to shift their swords.
Appeals to the relevant political leaders in river states to explore peaceful means to resolve the near impasse situations between the legislative and executive arms of government in the state.
The conference also urged the federal and state government to initiate sustainable policies that will eliminate poverty and improve lives and livelihood.
This acknowledges the courage of Mr. President on his economic policies taken so far, such as the removal of petroleum product subsidy and the floating of the exchange rate. The unintended consequences of these policies are too harsh on the populace. We therefore urge the federal government and state government to initiate sustainable policies with equal measures of courage to ameliorate the sufferings of the people.
The conference observed that in spite of constitutional provisions that grant financial autonomy to state legislature, the implementation has been observed in breach. Therefore, call on the relevant stakeholders to comply with all provisions in the Constitution and not by breach. Abimbola Lawrence, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, joining us in the studio to discuss this is the security consultant, Commodore Abimbola Ayuba, retired. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Veronica. Good morning, Brian.
Right.
Nigerians.
This matter of state security is a debate that is still ongoing, but where do you stand with regards to it being the antidote to the situation we have in the country with regards to insecurity?
Thank you very much, Veronica. I think before I answer that, I would like to state that perhaps the wheels of progress is grinding quite fast on the issue of national security, and that is quite commendable. And of course, the news coming out from this conference of speakers is quite encouraging because truly, that is the direction to go. I have been an advocate of state policing and, of course, deconstructing the current security architecture in a way that will impact better on the rural communities. And, of course, I endorse it, and I'm glad that at least we have the backing of the legislators to start with.
So if you look at it and then looking at the debate on how it all started, it's been over 70 years now we've been talking about it. Even War said that he found it very humiliating that a federal government, will be controlling the entire police without, the governments who are elected by the people do not have their own policing system. But why do you think retired police officers or maybe generals who are now in the Senate are kicking against the creation of state police? For instance, we have even the incumbent IGP Ayuba saying that Nigeria is not mature for state policing. Why do you think they are actually against it? Because it doesn't look like everyone still cares behind it.
Well, I think it's a case of different strokes for different folks. And of course, that might interrogate their core interest in the issue of state policing. Every Nigerian, I think they are entitled to their opinion. But in reality, the manifest thing is that there is a lot of insecurity going on, a lot of killings. In fact, the resilience rate of Nigerians have tripled over the last 1 year. That the rate of killings are just not even touching the heart of people any longer. So the IG, I don't blame him because there's no builder that wants his building demolished. But of course, we know that when buildings don't stand in the right path, they get demolished.
Is that to say that the current policing structure will be demolished with the creation of state police?
Certainly, it will not be demolished in the harsh way. It will be deconstructed because it's no longer able to serve the needs, the core needs of Nigerians. When you revert back to the Constitution, some of the opening statements say that the welfare and security of Nigerians shall be the primary purpose of government. So any other thing you are doing thereafter is just secondary. So we have to begin to see the need to keep Nigeria safe, first of all, for Nigerians, security of lives, security of properties, and of course, all these are entrenched in the core human rights of people, and of course, as declared by the UN. So if people cannot have right to free movement, they cannot sleep, they cannot walk at peace, and then how does society grow? Where we'll be returning to those dark years where Thomas Hobbes described the world as being brutish.
Right. Now, some of the statements made and what I deduced from it is that state governors would abuse this structure if it is deconstructed. That's using your word as it is, because they will now wield the powers to, assign policemen to certain issues and be able to respond swiftly and effectively with regards to issues bordering on insecurity in their states. And so the concern is, what kind of legal framework can we have such that governors would not abuse the structure if we adopt it?
Thank you very much. That's a very beautiful question. There are issues surrounding deconstructing the current structure, no doubt. But we also know that the idea of state policing is not alien to the global environment. The US, particularly where we model our constitution on, is virtually operating the same system. And the core concerns of people could be scaled on two platter. The platter of conservatism and the platter of progressives.
Right.
And of course, if we want to move forward in this country, we should not be afraid of doing so many things. There are a lot of things that have been unbundled already. Power has been unbundled. The people are suffering for that. Really, a lot of other things have been unbundled. The petroleum sector is greatly deregulated. So the country is still moving. The issue of policing is quite key. Now I'm arguing that we need to go back from community policing, state policing, and of course the federal police system as it currently exists will not be wiped out because of course, if you weigh that with what happens in countries like the US, you see that you still have structures like the FBI, Interpol, and all those ones. And that will free the hands of the IG from things that are happening in local government areas and world levels, which of course we can see that even over the years, the police have been dismembered. It's not, let's just bear it open. The police as was existed maybe in the 80s, or let's say in the late 70s. It's no more the Nigerian police that we have. Of course, we remember that NSO was started, the precursor to DSS, was created out of the Nigerian police. And of course, if you recall, that the old highway patrol was removed and it became road safety. And of course, the original CID structure of the police was taken away and also made to form part of the new state police arrangements. All these RRT are just interim measures because, of course, the real policing, they are gone. The VIO was part of the traffic department of the old police department. So is the special anti-fraud at mail vetting. We became EFCC.
Perhaps that's why the IGP was talking about incorporating some of these persons back into the system. But then my question is still on how do we ensure that this matter, if deconstructed, is not abused, so to speak, by the governors? That's the fear of a majority of some.
Well, the truth is this. If the governors, by the speaker's consensus, now we can say the floor is open for more dialogue. But this is not the first time that this issue of the fear have been brought into the public space. The kind of state policing architecture that will be formed, first of all, will be tailored towards the needs of individual states,
their
peculiar needs to start with. Then the board controlling these state police structures will consist of representatives from various wards in the state. I mean, we call it local government in the state. And of course, in this kind of structure, the kind of person that will head that police will have some level of independence in a way that the government cannot just call him out and tell him, oh, you mobilize and do this. There will be steps, procedures to deploy police at some particular stages. And of course, there will still be some relationship with the regular Nigerian police force. And of course, there exist already some quasi-policing actors. Already LASMA and some of these forces, if you virtually do just see everybody in yellow vest these days, and they are policing actors, illegal or legal.
Yeah, interesting, beautiful, framework that you proposing. But then I'm wondering how one can be independent of the government that funds you, because if the government is the alpha and the omega of seeing to the funds or funding of the state police, how do you want to be independent? Because they are going to stifle you with no funds.
Oh, well,
and then you'll be forced to do their whims.
No, let's look at what exists at the moment. There is a federal controlled police that is already being funded majorly by the state governors. And of course, we see that the police, federal police, can also be made to do some things that the governors want done. The thing is that every Nigerian now, we have to be honest with ourselves, that we want to be selfish. There is still some constitutional requirement that needs to be fine-tuned and agreed upon as we build up into this idea of state policing, that there will be some safety valves that should be in place. No-go areas that will require so many, maybe votes from the police council before you can do these moves. You understand? So I want to see a system where experts are pulled together to fine-tune the nitty-gritties of what may remain as the fears of people. Because already, I will tell you, most of the fears are selfish.
Really?
Yes, because just take one political office holder and look at how many police details they have. For example, most of the policemen we have are not able to answer to the needs of the core Nigerians to start with. let me just, I don't want to label it to any particular office holder, but let's just say at the federal level, for instance, you have escorts. They take a minister and watch them drive by in a convoy from the airport along the road, maybe like 7 minimum of Prados, and you see policemen all over in them. And the United Nations specifies that there should be one police covering about 450 persons. That is not happening because of the shortages. What we have are policemen doing VIP protection.
But several times we've talked about withdrawing them back into the system, but we do not see that happening.
That is why we need to unravel the reason why it doesn't work. Because, of course, it has some elements of monetization and benefits. It
works during the election.
And then it works in a way that, in fact, it's so pathetic that people who own filling stations, for instance, could have like 5 policemen attached to one filling station. You go to some malls, you see about 5 policemen. Most of them sleeping on duty. Go and check it out. So these people can then be used to cover the gaps. We've been talking about getting policing actors to go back to areas where the military have carried out their kinetic operations. When the military liberates a space, police is expected to return to that space. You go to all these conflict areas, they won't find police. In the whole of Borno, for instance, you can find up to 750 policemen. In the whole of Borno, with about 27 local governments or so. And when you see one policeman in a local government area, maybe you find about 17.
Is this so difficult for us to recruit them? What really is the problem?
It's not just about recruitment, it's about the deployment and efficient use of what we have. Policing with a lot of technology has been made easier. Policemen now go with body cams. They go with sophisticated gadgets, communication equipment.
We know Lagos State did some of that, but how many states have that?
They will do their type of police. Even as we speak, some of those states we think they don't have their quasi-police forces in their various ramifications that the government pays for, that the local government pays for, some religious actors pay for. So all we need to do, each state has their peculiar needs. They will design their level of policing, and where there are gaps, whatever is left of the federal police could be used to deal with.
So, and that brings to the fore again, the concerns of people. First, is this state policing that we are talking about going to supplant the local government, vigilante system, or is it that we are going to also have, apart from the state police, we already have a federal police, are we also going to have local government police? Because even now we're talking about local government autonomy, so that all of these things, a dividend of government will reach the grassroots. So, so is it going to, change the existing apparatus? And talking about different regions having, or different states having their own
peculiar
structure. And that brings to the fore again the ethnic tension, which we often talk about. Okay, so this is the Southwest. We have the Oyo, so how do they relate to people that are not from that ethnic region? All of these concerns. So how do you think this addresses it?
Thank you very much, Brian. State police does not mean that when you form a state police, it will only comprise of citizens of that peculiar state.
But that is one of the reasons they are saying it, because
no,
they say
it will not necessarily have to be comprising of only citizens of that state. There will be people who will be hired who are experts in some aspects of policing. And then, of course, they will be on certain contract terms. And, of course, policing is a fluid and continuous process that even in Lagos, as we have it, go to Lasma. Every Lasma man is not Yoruba, is not. You can check them out.
No, sir. Sorry. One of the reasons, the argument advanced for the creation of state police is that the people from that locality, they know the terrain, because that is the lacuna that the
I
federal
understand
police
where you
has.
what you are trying to interrogate. You see, before you get to state, if you want to really operate a comprehensive system, you must have this local government police, in whatever name you want to call them, up to the ward level. In some other climes, you have sheriffs that police some counties, for instance. He drives around with his car, he checks on people, he asks questions. But there are still people around some street areas that are part of the policing architecture. They don't have to be employed to wear uniform. The citizens who have been trained to understand the terrain, they can report unusual movements. They have empowered to communicate.
Intelligence gathering.
Intelligence gathering.
Yeah.
That is community-based. Every trouble, every politics is local. It comes from the community. And if you don't have criminals embedding themselves anymore in these communities, and they are reported as soon as they start migrating into those communities, then you are likely to nip in the bud. And of course, the traditional rulers are supposed to be part of what we are talking about, because they know everything that's happening within their terrain. And they will be more comfortable reporting through a system that is homegrown, and they can always sustain it. If there are issues, as we move along, you can fine-tune whatever arrangements you are doing.
Absolutely.
Nothing is cast in stone.
Now, the other matter will be funding.
Yeah.
Who takes the responsibility? The state or the federal government as it is? Because some states are said to not be as viable to be able to manage some of these responsibilities as it is. That's one of the challenges that some persons say we might face.
Yeah, in the face of minimum wage as well, which some of them have not even refused to pay.
Agreed to pay.
Thank you very much. You see, there will never be enough in the till for everything. But I know that in this country, we have been reading and watching and also seeing a lot of people being brought into the courts for grafting money, for stealing money. There are lots of monies that have been so loose that people are able to pinch them and get away with them. Some of them still get away with it. And of course, the issue of security funding. Lagos is a very, very, very good example, a model of how security is funded. Some of these things are be funded by all stakeholders.
Security.
You can even put a little tax on. You see, some of the taxes are ongoing, but they are going to private pockets. If you go to Motor Park, for instance, all these tickets that they are cutting out, you discover that in one major bus stop, it's a revenue base for some people who don't account for that. It doesn't go into the federal. I'm talking about this touting and everything. Some of them may go to Oshodi alone and see how much is being collected from buses. Where does the money go to? So if you begin to rechannel those funding into the security architecture, you will understand that. Of course, all of us even have megas, you know. If you, in our streets, in our street corners, we have gates, we have all sorts of things, and we are paying for. So if you put all those monies in the center, it will be more efficient to manage. And of course, we can now have better security because, of course, the synergy has been developed. It's not all about funding alone. There are also a network of so many retired veterans that are sitting in these local governments, in villages that don't have much to do. To bring them into the system, you're already earning pension already. So just tell them, look, we want you to look after this and this and this. And then maybe with some little motivation additionally, they will do the job. So shouldn't be about funding.
But then who should take that responsibility in specific terms?
The responsibility is total. From the citizen to the local government. Most of these people have industries embedded in them. They have mineral resources embedded in them. We have to unbundle all those things. Where is this thing going to? It goes back to the issue of restructuring. It goes back to the issue of minimum wage. We pay people very well, and you tax them for security. They will be. If I can pay so much amount for security, I can sleep very well without thinking that somebody will losing my 4 tires if I should park outside my house. Well, I think I will be glad to contribute.
A lot of taxation for
all of these are still in the subjunctive because if I could. But then one of the problems or one of the arguments has been that should they carry a weapon? What kind of weapon are they going to be using? Because we already know that the federal policing system has its own weaponry. The Nigerian army, the military generally, they also have. So what about the state police? Are they going to carry a weapon? Is it just dagger or what's it called, that long one, rifle or anyone?
Then gun.
Then guns.
Thank you, Ibrahim. This is taking us to a very, it's another wide area of discussion. Yeah. The issue of proliferations of small arms and light weapons. You will be amazed at the volume of illicit arms that illegally in the hands of people who shouldn't have them to even start with. So I'm talking about people who even arguing within their group, their gangs, they call groups, they are armed to the teeth. Of course, you have also the smugglers, the oil thieves. And so when you now think of that the state police should not be armed, they should be armed according to the level of threat. And don't forget that the military still exists in all these spaces. Look, I was listening to the news, this newspaper review, and some people are asking for establishment of a military base in Benue. In how many places will you put the military? They're already overtasked. They're already stretched and suffering. And the military don't come out the way they are being used now. You see here of Banex today is this, the other way is tomorrow, army versus this. It's because they are overstretched and they are already being taxed. Many of them are suffering from a lot of issues, PTSD and things that can easily be ignited. So we need to give them the level or the kind of arms that is suitable for their duties. We already have neighborhood watch in Lagos, for instance. They are not armed, they are carrying cordials, but they are effective. So let them see how to stitch together all this.
Their effectiveness is not tied to the weapons they carry. That's what you're saying. Not really. Right, okay. That's a fine place to leave the conversation. We must thank you, security consultant, Commodore Abimbola Ayuba, retired. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.